This conference will now be recorded.
Right, let's start. So yesterday we have seen how to design the checkboxes and the radio buttons on the selection screen. Okay. So in continuation to this selection screen elements, let us see this example. Yeah. So my requirement is we should have the selection screen which should contain two blocks, block 1 and block 2. Block 1 should contain some input fields, and you can see here this in this comment, this labels, it should not start from the left hand side, it should start from a specific position. This I gave this as an assignment. Okay, so it should start from a specific position, and block 2 should contain two push buttons. Just like we have input fields, checkboxes, radio buttons, we have push buttons. Okay, so here simple, the requirement is simple. User will enter some input values here, and these are the validations here. All the input fields should be mandatory. In the third input, based on the user input and on click of result button, we have to perform the required operation and display the result in what? Information dialog box. On click of this exit button, we should exit the selection screen. So we should focus on how to design these push buttons, and we should implement the logic related to this particular buttons. Whenever we click on this buttons, depending on the button we interacted, appropriate action has to be performed. That is a requirement. So this program covers many things. It covers how to design blocks, how to start the elements from a specific position, how to design the push buttons, and we'll start with the event handling concept. Okay, this is the overall requirement. So before I continue, any questions related to the previous sessions? Okay, so let us quickly do this. So we require what? Two blocks. So what is this block means? It is something like this. If we go to Abap editor SC38, see this is also a block, na? This is also a block which contains some radio buttons, and here this is input field and what? The push button, all those things. Okay. Okay. So let's see this. So I'll go to Abap editor. I'll give the object name. What is the last program? Yeah, 9, I think. So I'll go for 10. I'll give some title. Type of program as usual, what? Executable program. Yeah. So initially, let us focus on this what? Input fields. How to design the input fields by using what? Parameter statements. I require three input fields now. So let me take what? Three parameter statements. P underscore X type I, P underscore Y type I, and what else? P underscore Z type I. I'll make all this, I'll provide some default values. I'll make all these fields as obligatory. So observe this carefully. When I execute this, I'll get the selection screen. So to provide the meaningful selection text, we already know. How do we do it? We'll choose the menu, go to text element, selection text. You'll give the selection text here. Whatever the text we give, that will appear from the left hand side, na? But I don't want it from the left hand side. I want to start from a what particular position. So let's see how to do it. So the adjustment I'll do is overall, if you see this block one, in block one, in block one, how many lines I require? 3 lines. In each line, we require some text. In each line, we require some text. We call it as comment, and we require what? One input field. So I require overall how many lines? 3 lines. In the first block, I require 3 lines. So observe here. I'll say selection screen, begin of line. Try to understand. Selection screen, begin of line. I'll keep this parameter statement between begin of line and end of line. Selection screen, end of line. So only the first parameter statement I'm keeping between what? Begin of line and end of line. Only the first parameter. Let's see whether any change is there in the appearance. Okay, so we have the statement begin of line and end of line. Save it, check for the syntax. When I execute, yeah, any change we observe? What is the change? That variable name is not getting displayed. What are the variable we have declared? That variable is not getting displayed. Okay, so I'll repeat this process for the other 2 parameter variables. So selection skip begin offline, I don't require the chain operator because I want it separate line. I'm keeping that between separate begin offline and end offline. Okay, done. And here also begin offline, end offline. I'll say what? Parameters. Parameters so and so. Again, I'll say selection screen, what? End of line. So we have constructed what? 3 lines, begin of line and end of line. In each line, I'm using the parameter statement. So what is happening here? The variable name is not getting displayed. So when I execute, yeah, I got what? 3 input fields, right? Now in each line, what we require? We require one text, nothing but a comment we call it as. We require one comment and we require what? One input field. So what I'll do? First, in every line I require a comment. So after beginning the line, I will use a statement, excuse me, I'll use a statement selection screen comment, selection screen comment. I want to start the label somewhere from 9th position. Starting from the left hand side, I want to start the label from the 9th position. Done. And I want to reserve some 25 spaces. Okay, so I'll say 9 of 25. I'll give some for that comment. I have to give some variable name, just like for input field. What are the variable names I give? P underscore X, Y, Z. Similarly, for the label also, or we call it as comment, I have to give some variable name. You can give any name. For my convenience, I'll give the name as LB1. You can give any name. So what is the change I have done? In the first line, we are constructing 2 elements. One is comment, nothing but label. Another is what? Input field. And that comment we are instructing SAP to start from which position? 9th position. Reserve how many spaces? 25 spaces. Let's see what happens. So when I execute, good. Any change here? You can see in the first line, the cursor is blinking. The cursor is blinking from which position? 9th position. Suppose I will start this from 15th position. 15 of 25. Starting from the 15th position in the left hand side, it will reserve how many spaces? 25 spaces. So when I execute, you can see here cursor is blinking in the 15th position. Reserve how many spaces? 25 spaces. After that, I got the input field. I will repeat this process for the rest of the lines also. Okay, the variable name cannot be same, so I'll give it as LB2. This I'll give LB3. Okay, so save, check for the syntax, done, execute. F8. Yes. What happened here? The cursor is blinking. You can observe here. It is starting blinking from what? 15th position. And each label we are reserving how many spaces? 25 spaces. Hope this is clear up to this. Any questions? Okay, right. So we got what, three lines. In each line, we are constructing two elements. One is comment, nothing but label, and there is what, input field. I have to provide some text for this. I have to provide some text for these labels now, right? So how do I provide the text here is, if I go for selection text, again you'll have the same problem. You'll get it from the left hand side. So in Abap, we have something called as event handling. We have the concept of event handling. Every programming languages contains what? Events. Okay, so we need to handle those events. Okay, we need to handle those events to provide dynamism to the applications. Okay, we need to handle that event to implement dynamic features to the application. So we are executing the program now. So whenever we start the execution of the program, what we are getting here, if I execute the program, we are getting what? Selection screen. So before the selection screen is displayed for us, internally SAP will trigger, SAP will fire, SAP will raise some events. Who will, raising means calling, who will fire that events by SAP itself. So what are those events means? Before displaying the selection screen to us, SAP will internally trigger two events. There are other events also. I'm not talking about that events, not required at this stage, leave it. So whenever I start the execution of the program, the first event which is triggered by SAP is what? Initialization event. Okay, after initialization event, what is the next event triggered by SAP? At selection screen output. After at selection screen output only, the selection screen will be shown to us. Understood? So we have developed 10 programs so far. In all those 10 programs, internally, SAP will trigger that events. Okay, but we have not handled that event, so nothing got happened. Here, what we are trying to understand, what are the events triggered by SAP before showing the selection screen to the user? Two events, initialization event and what? At selection screen output. So in this diagram, it is clearly understood what is the first event triggered. Initialization event is the first event which gets triggered. So what you have to do is, I need to handle this event. So far we are not handling that event. So what happens internally, when I execute the program, SAP will raise this event. SAP will check whether we have handled this event. If you have not handled, nothing will happen. If you handle, it will execute that logic. So how do we handle this event is, events are always handled at the end. Events are always implemented at the end of the program. So what is the event? Initialization event. So inside this initialization event, I need to write some logic. So what kind of logic you'll write in the initialization event is, generally as part of this initialization event, we will try to initialize the selection screen elements. So what I'll do here, what are my label names, what are my comment variable names? LB1, LB2, LB3. So I'll say LB1 equal to, enter what? First number. Okay. I'll say LB2 equal to, I'll say something, enter second number. Enter what? Second number. Okay. and then what? Enter what? Choice. So here I'll say LB3 equal to what? LB3 is equal to what? Enter what? Choice. I'll give it as 1, 2, 3, 4, something. Okay, that's all. Let's see whether it works or not. So save it, check for the syntax, no errors. So when I start the execution of the program, internally what SAP will do, SAP will trigger a event called as initialization event. Whenever that event is triggered by SAP, SAP will check whether we have handled that event within your program. Yes, we have handled that event. Na? So SAP will execute this logic. What logic we have done? We have implemented here. We are initializing that particular comment variables, labels. So when I execute, yes, I got what? The meaningful text. It is starting from which position? Somewhere from 15th position. We have reserved what? Some 25 spaces. Is this clear? So don't think too much at this stage. Just understand this diagram. What is the first event triggered? Initialization event. Whenever we start execution of any program, the first event triggered by SAP is what? Initialization event. SAP will check whether we have handled that event or not. In case if you have handled that event, SAP will execute that particular logic. Okay, since you have handled, SAP will execute this logic. What kind of logic you will write here? No one will tell us to write this logic and that logic. It is a developer will what kind of logic he has to write. Generally, we will write the logic to initialize your selection screen elements. What are my selection screen comment variables here? LB1, LB2, LB3. I am initializing that so that I'll get the text there. Yeah. Any questions up to this point? Okay, right. Now, what is the next requirement? Hello?
Hello, sir.
Yes, I
So
tell
here
me.
you have written selection screen begin offline 3 times. Uh,
Okay.
can we include 3 parameters px, py, pz in only one selection screen begin offline inside?
So only in one line you'll get all the elements. In the same line you'll get the elements. Means
Okay, okay.
suppose if I comment this end of line, this also I'll comment. Please mute your speakers. Begin of line, end of line. Here also I'll say like this. Okay. So I am starting only one begin of line and I am putting what? End of line. So first of all, uh, yeah, now before I execute, will I get any syntax errors now? If I do the syntax check, will I get any syntax errors? I'm asking everyone, will I get any syntax errors now? Yes, Bhavani?
No, sir.
No syntax errors, huh? Okay.
There may be
So,
overlap. 15
sir,
is
chain operator is not there. Maybe.
Why I'm using
Maybe
separate parameter. I'm using separate parameters, no? So I don't require chain operator, no?
Okay. Right.
Right?
all three will start from 15th line only.
Yeah, good. Okay, so what happens is it will try to overlap. In the same line, we are trying to place multiple elements at the same place. Na? Already this starting from 15th position, we are reserved 25 spaces. This label will be constructed. After that, this input field will be constructed. After that, in the same line, again in the 15th position, we are trying to place another element. Na? So you may not get the syntax error, but I may get the activation error. So when I do syntax check, no syntax error, but I'm trying to activate. I may get an activation error saying that activation in generating the selection skin 1000. What are the selection skin we are getting so far? That selection skin will have a number. Always the selection skin number is 1000. In every program, whenever a selection screen is generated, what is the selection screen number? Always 1000. Okay, so when I try to activate this program, no syntax errors, I'm trying to activate. Good. I got an activation error. Error when generating selection screen 1000. So you will get this activation only only when one selection screen element is getting overlapped on what? Another selection screen element. Am I clear? So that is the reason. Okay, I'll do one thing. 15 of 25, then I got the input field. I'll do one thing. Let me comment this too. Let me take only two input fields, for example. Okay, this 15 of 25 is 40 spaces are over. After that 40, we are constructing one input field. Assume that it may take some 10 spaces. So 40 plus 10, 50. I'll start this from 60th position. Let me check. Save it. Check for the syntax error. LB3 I commented. Now I'll comment this. I'll try to activate this. Good. No activation error. When I execute, what happened here? I'm getting in the same line. Na? Sai. Did you got the point? Okay. This is the problem you'll have.
Yes, sir. Okay, sir.
Okay. So that is the reason I have to put it in what? Separate lines.
Okay, sir. Thank you.
Right. Yeah. Hope this is clear to everyone. Okay. How you have to interpret this? Starting from 15th position, we are reserving 25 spaces. Means from the left hand side, 40 spaces will be completed. After that 40 spaces, we are constructing some input field. Some length would be there, some 8 or whatever it is. Okay, 40 plus 8, 48. After that, from the 60th position, I'm starting that. So this is not a problem. Okay, we are able to place. Okay, so that is the reason. Since I want it in a separate lines, I'm using what? Separate begin of line and end of line. Since I want the proper alignment, it is a fresh line, I'm giving the same coordinates. Okay, done. So we have constructed 3 lines. Any questions further? Any questions? Okay. Next, what is the next requirement here? I want this in the form of a block. Na? I want this in the form of a block. So what I'll do here, somewhere here, I'll say selection screen, begin of block, selection screen, begin of block. We have to give some block name. You can give any name. I'll give it as BK1, some name with the frame, Okay, I'll give some title. I'll give the title variable as something T1. You can give any name. So begin of block name with the frame title so on. So then somewhere here, I'll close the block. Selection screen, end of block name is BK1. That's all. Okay, so I'm enclosing the statements between begin of block and end of block. So let's see whether these elements will appear in a block or not. So save, check for the syntax, no errors. When I execute, yes, can you see the block? Yes, we are getting a block kind of thing. Na? This is a block, right? So the elements are enclosed inside a block. Now for this block, I want some title kind of thing, something like this. Here also, I'm having a block. Okay, I want some title kind of thing, block title. What is the title variable I give? T1. Na? So I'll try to initialize that. So I'll say here T1 equal to some title I'll give. What is that? Input values. Save it. Check for the syntax. When I execute, yes, I got the block with some title there. Understood? Can we control the size of the block? Means I don't know. I don't know. We have to check the documentation. Am I clear? Okay, so how do I check? I'll put the cursor on this block somewhere on the block or somewhere on selection screen. I'll press F1. Why I'm saying I don't know means don't try to remember. If you try to remember, you will not get the subject. It will come only by practice. Always you have to refer to the documentation. By the end of the course, we will see 1,000 different statements. Can we remember all those things? No. It comes only by experience and practice. So don't try to by heart. No one will ask you the syntax. If he's asking the syntax, he is a fool. Understand? Interviewer will never ask you the syntax. Yes, they may ask the syntax for very frequently used statement, but not for all the statements, all the additions. No one will ask. We can't remember. So I'll put the cursor. I'll press F1. If you press F1, we have begin of block, begin of tabbed block, end of block, end of tabbed block. I'll go for what? Begin of block. Some documentation is a selection scheme, begin of block, block name with frame title. It is talking about something no intervals. So this is in the square brackets. Yesterday I told you, I believe, no intervals. Sorry, if you have anything in the square brackets, it is nothing but what optional. We may or may not use. Any documentation is there for this no intervals, I'll click on this. Yeah, if you specify no intervals, the addition of the same name is used implicitly in the select option statement. Again, I don't know what is select option at this stage. Is used implicitly in the select option statements when defining all the selection criteria for this block. And the block is narrowed accordingly. And the block is narrowed accordingly. If the block has a frame, the blocks nested within it also inherit the addition no intervals. Okay. So I'll try to use no intervals. Let me check whether I'll get any change in the appearance. I'm using no intervals. Check for the syntax. Execute this. Ah, yes. What happened was it is narrowed accordingly. It is narrowed accordingly. Done. So this is my construction of the first block. Similarly, what I want after this first block, I want to leave some two spaces or one space. I want to design one more block. So what I'll do here after this block, I want to leave some two spaces on the selection screen. So I'll say selection screen skip two. It will skip what? Two lines on the selection screen. Let me construct another block. So I'll say selection screen, begin of block. I'll give the block name as anything. I'll give it as BK2. I'll say with frame title. I'll give it as something T2. You give any names. I'm giving it as T1, T2. I'll close the block. Selection screen, end of block. What is the block name? BK2. Okay, so we have two blocks, BK1 and BK2. But the second block doesn't have any elements. No? Since my second block doesn't have any elements, it may not show that block. When I execute, yes, we can't see anything. Block also I can't see because it doesn't have any elements. What elements you want in that block? I want some two push buttons. Yesterday we have learnt how to design radio buttons. Now I want what? Push buttons. Radio buttons are for selection. Push button is for what? Clicking. Okay. So I'll design what? Two push buttons. What are the caption I want? Result and what? Exit. So what I'll do here in the beginner block and end of block, I'll say, one second, please, one second. Yeah, what we are trying to discuss, designing what? Push buttons. So again, I don't know how to design the push buttons. So what I have to do? Push button also I want it on the selection screen only. No? So let me check whether any syntax is available to design the push buttons. So how do I check it? I'll put somewhere the cursor on the selection screen statement. I'll press F1. right? So you can see here we have different things here: begin of screen, end of screen, selection screen, screen elements. So you can see left hand side also we have selection screen, screen elements. If I click on this, we have many statements here. We have seen skip, we have seen comment, we have seen line, we have seen block. We have what something push button. Let me click on this. Double click on this. Yeah, they give some syntax. Okay, selection screen, push button, so on, so on, so on. Right? So they're all optional kind of things. Okay, so position low, position high, length, button text, user command, so on, so on, so done. Okay, so keeping this syntax in mind, let me design the push button. So here I'll say what selection screen. What is this push button? I want to start this push button from what from 17th position or from 18th position. Starting from the 18th position, let me reserve some 10 spaces for my push button. Okay, I'm reserving 10 spaces. Push button also should have a name. Na? I'll give some name like B1. Let's say for checkboxes, we give P underscore R1, P underscore R2, something like that. Here, for input fields, I give P underscore X, P underscore Y, P underscore Z. For labels, I give LB1, LB2, LB3. For button, I'll give B1. Let me stop it here. Let me check what happens. Say, check for the syntax. I got an error in the 23rd line. What is that? User command so and so expected after B1. User command expected after B1. So there is one addition we have to use. It's user command, which is mandatory. Even if you refer to the documentation, okay, you can see here user command is not there in the square brackets. No? If anything is there in the square brackets, it is mandatory. Otherwise, it is not. Sorry, if anything is there in the square bracket, it is optional. If it is not there in the square brackets, indicates what? Compulsory, mandatory. So what I'll do here, I'll say user command. I'll give some function code. What is the documentation is saying here? User command F code. F code means function code. You can give any name. You can give any name. I'll give the name as something. I'll give the name as something. Gensoft Technologies. Okay. Save it. Check for the syntax error. I don't have any errors. Okay. I'll give the function code as something. Welcome to Gensoft Technologies. Save it. Check for the syntax. What is saying here? The user command can be up to 20 characters long. So already we know the variable name cannot be more than 30 characters. Parameter variable name cannot be more than 8 characters. It seems the function code cannot be more than 20 characters. Okay. So I'll give a short name. Let me get as FC1. You can give any name. I get the FC1. So what is the function code? FC1. What is the purpose of that function code? We'll understand shortly. Next, in the same line, I want to construct one more push button. So already we have utilized what? Starting from the 18th position, we have reserved what 10 spaces. So 18 plus 10 is a 28. So after that only I want a button. So I'll say again, selection screen. What is this? Push button. I'll say something 32nd position. Starting from the 32nd position, I'll give some 5 guessing width, or I'll give the same width 10. I'll give it as B2. I'll associate the function code as FC2. Okay, so save it, check for the syntax, done. Execute. When I say F8, yes, I got what? 2 push buttons in the second block. In the second block, I have not used no intervals. That's why I am not getting that block is not narrowed. Okay, so if you want to use it here, use here also. I'll say no intervals. So when I execute this, when I say F8, yes, I got this particular one. Done. Next, for the push buttons, I want to give some text. So where do we initialize in the initialization event? So I'll say B1 equal to result. Okay, B2 equal to something what exit, And title also, what is the T2 I gave? T2 equal to, I'll say something, operation, something, some meaningful title. So when I execute this, yes, I got the so so my designing of blocks is completed, designing of comments, push buttons, all those things, right? Any questions up to this point?
Sir, like we use the parameters for radio buttons and checkboxes, can we use that for push buttons, sir? Because we are using here selection screen, no, sir.
Here we cannot use whatever we want. If the syntax is supported, I can use, right? So if I say parameters here, okay, I don't know whether I can use push button for parameters or not. How do I check it? Type parameters, press F1, press F1. Related to parameters, if I go to screen options, we have only checkbox, radio button, list box. Do you have push buttons here? No, no. So what is the meaning? I can't use. Right, Sayed? Is it clear? So we have to go by the syntax provided by SAP. Yeah.
Okay,
Any
sir.
other
Thank you.
questions? Yeah, yeah.
Sir,
Yes,
uh,
I.
you gave title names, sir, frame title T2. That is not displayed on selection screen. Then why to give names titles?
Title variable I gave, not T1, T2, and I'm initializing this here, right? Input values, operations. It is displayed, na? Here.
Okay, sir. So then blocks,
This is a block only, na? Appearance is
block
block only. Na?
names. What is block names?
Every element on the screen should have a name. Should have a name. Even though I'm not initializing any value, we should have a name for that. Here, if you take button, okay, I gave a name here, but did I initialize anywhere? Yeah, I initialized here, fine. But function code is there.
Yes.
Did I initialize anywhere here? No. So point here is every element on the screen should have a name. Should have a name. And according to the syntax, we have to use it. Even if you see the block syntax, if I put the cursor on the selection screen, if I press F1, if I go to selection screen elements, okay, where is that block boss? Yeah, begin our block. What is saying here? Block, na? So according to the syntax, you have to go for that. Okay, so I may not initialize every element. I may not need to initialize, but still we have to give some names.
Okay.
Okay,
So every element should have name.
should have a name.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay, sir. Thank you.
That element can be in the form of push button, radio button, checkbox, comment, block, list box, whatever it is. Every element should have a name for unique identification. For unique identification, we have to give a name, and that names cannot be same. Every element should have a different name. Yeah. Any other questions, others? Okay. So we are done with the designing part. See, remember, I have not developed this program at a time. I have not typed this program at a time. I have not shown the result. I have done it part by part. I have done it part by part. So when you are practicing also, don't type the program as it is. Do it part by part, test it, check what is happening. Based on that, we can do the better analysis. Okay, right. So what is the next agenda here? We have designed the push buttons. What is the purpose of this push buttons? To do some actions. Na? When I click on this button, something should happen. When I click on this button, something should happen. Okay. So this is nothing but the selection screen. Na? So if you see the sequence of events, what is the first event triggered? Initialization event. What is the next event triggered? At selection screen output. What is the purpose of this at selection screen output? We may not understand for the next 1 month. Leave it. As and when required, we'll see that. Okay, so as of now, I'm not handling that event. So after triggering at selection screen output, what is the screen displayed to us? Selection screen is displayed. On my selection screen, I'm having some push buttons now. What is the purpose of push buttons? To do some action, to click on that. When I click on that, depending on the button we interacted, depending on the button we clicked, appropriate action has to be performed. So see here, once a selection screen is displayed to the user, when the user clicks on the push button, what happens? What is the second step? SAP triggers, SAP fires a event called as at selection screen. SAP triggers a event called as at selection screen, and it captures the function code of that interacted button in the system field called as SciUCOM. So how many buttons I am having? Two buttons. No? I am having two buttons on my selection screen. What are the function codes of these buttons? FC1 and FC2. These are called as what? Function codes. I have associated these function codes at the time of designing the push buttons. So whenever the user clicks on the push button, what is the event triggered? Yes, at selection screen, that is the event triggered, and the function code of that interacted button is captured in what system field? SciUCOM. If you have practiced in the initial class last week, I believe, or this week only, I don't know, I forgot. We have seen some system fields like SciDatum, SciUgit, SciRepid. We have a system field called as SciUCOM, which will capture the function code of the interacted element. What is the element here? Button. So if I click on the result button, if I click on the result button, what is the function code of that result button? FC1 only na, result is what? B1. What is the function code? FC1. That FC1 will be stored, will be captured in what system field? A system field called as SciUCOM. So based on that SciUCOM value, I have to do the appropriate operation. So let us handle that event. Where do we handle the event? At the end of the program. Na? Already we have handled the event called as initialization. Let me handle a event called as what? At selection screen. At the selection screen. Okay, at selection screen. Uh, how many buttons are there on my screen? Two buttons. User might click on any of the button, and that interacted button function code will be captured in the system field what? SciUCOM. So here I'll say case, or I can go for if also. Case or if. I'll say case SciUCOM when FC1 do so and so. When what are the positive values? FC1 or FC2 only na? In yesterday's or day before yesterday, what are the values I gave? 1, 2, 3. Here I know what are the buttons I designed. I know what are the function codes I have associated, FC1, FC2. So when FC1, FC2 do so and so. End for case is what? End case. So when I click on the exit button, what should happen? When I click on the exit button, I should exit the selection screen. I should come out of the selection screen. So we have a statement leave program. We have a statement what? Leave program. So let's see. When I click on the first button, what I have to do? I have to perform the addition. I have to perform the addition and display that. I'm sorry. Oh, okay. Depending on the choice, again I have to perform the operation. So what I'll do now? When FC1, if what is the third input field was? P underscore what? Z. P underscore Z, where I am entering the choice. If P underscore Z equal to 1, do so and so, or else you say case P underscore Z. Anything is fine. In between case and case, I can go for nested case. Case P underscore Z. What are the positive values you'll enter? When 1, do so and so. When 2, you'll do so and so. When 3, you'll do so and so. When 4, you'll do so and so. If I enter other than 1, 2, 3, 4, I'll give a message. Please enter choice as what? 1 or 2 or 3 or 4. Okay, type what? Information, message, end case. Clear? So when one means what? I have to do the addition. Na? So I'll say I require one variable for storing the result. Na? Let me declare a variable somewhere here, anywhere on in the program. I'll declare a variable data v underscore res type what, v underscore res type I. Okay. So here I'll say v underscore res is equal to p underscore x plus p underscore y. I want to display this in the information dialog box. So message, I'll use the pipe symbol. If this syntax is not supported in your system, go for the other syntax which I covered day before yesterday. So I'll say sum is in the flower brackets. What is the variable? V underscore res. V underscore res. Okay, I'll use the pipe symbol. I'll say type what? Information message. Repeat this process for the rest of the this thing. When to p underscore x is minus what? P underscore y. I'll say difference is so and so. When 3. So this part I am not focusing now. Already we discussed. Okay, I'll say product is so and so. Okay, when 4, I'll do the division. V underscore x equal to p underscore x by p underscore y. I'll say division is so and so. Okay, so what is the understanding? Whenever we interact with the button on the selection screen, what is the event it triggered? At selection screen. At selection screen, and the function code of that button, the function code of that button will be captured in the system field what? SciUCom. So I have to compare with that SciUCom value and do so and so. Okay, done. Let me save it. Check for the syntax, done. Right. So before I execute, okay, let me execute otherwise. I'll execute this. Right. This is a mandatory field. I'll enter some value. I'll click on the exit button. What is the logic I wrote in the exit button? Leave program now. So whenever I click on this exit button, what is the event triggered? At selection screen. And the function code of that button will be captured, will be stored in a system field called as SciUCom. So I'm comparing with SciUCom only. When FC2, what is the logic I wrote? Leave programmer. So when I click on this, is it working? It is not working. Suppose I'll enter the choice as something, I'll enter the choice as something 3. If I click on this, I should get the product. Na? What happened? I'm not getting. I'm not getting. When I click on the result, nothing is happening. When I click on exit also, nothing is happening. Means something went wrong. Can anyone guess or can anyone tell me what could be the issue? Sai, yesterday you have sent me the program. So on that basis, you should be able to tell me. Sai or Rohit, I don't know. Someone sent me. Rohit, I think so. Okay. On that basis, you should be able to tell. Function code example you have shared, na Rohit?
Yes,
I
yes,
said, yeah. So on
yes.
that basis, you should be able to tell what is the issue. Or anyone. Why I'm not getting.
Sir, can we give that function code names in single quotes because we declare it as a
I
variable
gave
there,
in
no, sir?
I gave in single quotes only, na?
Yeah.
Acha,
Can we
you
give
want me
like
to?
that, sir?
Yeah, we can give. No, you must give in single quotes only because it is a character field basically. So character values you have to compare in single quotes only, na?
Okay, sir. Okay, sir.
So how do we approach anyone? What I'll do is I'll put the breakpoint. I will understand whether that event is getting triggered or not. So I am not interested to debug the whole program. I'll debug only this event. So I'll put the breakpoint in the at selection screen event. In the 39th line, I am setting the breakpoint. When this event is triggered, I told according to this explanation, this event is triggered when the user clicks on what? Push button. After a few days, again, I'll change my sentence. As of now, what I'm saying, whenever we click on the selection screen push buttons, what is the event triggered? At selection screen. So control should stop here. That is the reason I'm putting the breakpoint here. And the function code of that interacted element, in this case the element is button, the function code of the interacted button will be captured in the system field SciUCom, will be captured in the system field SciUCom. So let's see whether it is captured or not. So I'll execute this. Then I got the selection screen. I'll enter some input values. I'll click on the exit button. What is the event triggered? The event triggered is what? At selection screen. And the function code of that button is what? FC2. In the program for exit button, I gave FC2. That FC2 should be captured in the system field SciUCom. Let's see. When I click on the exit button, yes, it is going to the debugging mode. It is stopping where? In the at selection screen event. It is stopping in what? At selection screen event. So it is confirmed that this event is getting triggered. For a better view, I'll switch to desktop 3. Yeah, so where it is stopping? In that selection screen. So it is confirmed that the event is getting triggered. And what is the function code of the button? Exit button, FC2. Na? I told that FC2 will be stored in what system field now? SciUCom. Na? See the value of SciUCom in the memory. What is the value here? FC2. It is in uppercase. When the function code is captured in the system field SciUCom, it is captured in what? Uppercase. But we are comparing in what? Lowercase. Na? When FC1, when FC2, I gave it in lowercase. So I don't have any appropriate when condition which is comparing with this uppercase. Na? So it will not go to any of the when blocks. So when I say FI, it is coming out of the end case because there is no matching when block. So what is the story here? Even though in the program I might associate the function code in lowercase, in the runtime means during program execution, in the runtime, when the system field is captured in SciUCom, it is always captured in uppercase. That is the reason now onwards, remember, wherever you compare the SciUCom value, always the function code should be given in what? Uppercase only. You might have designed in lowercase or uppercase, doesn't matter. But when you are comparing with SciUCom, it should always be compared in uppercase only, because always the function code will be captured in uppercase in the system field SciUCom. So when I execute this, I'm not debugging now, right? This is a mandatory field. I have to enter the value. I'll click on exit. Yes, it is coming out of the program now, working fine. I'll click on execute. I'll give the value as something 9. I'll click on result. Do you have when 9? No, no. When others? Please enter choice as so and so. I'll enter 5. I'll enter 2. Okay. What I got? Difference is what? 2. Right? I'll enter 10 and what? 18. I'll enter the choice as 2. I'll click on. What is this? Difference is -8. Swapna, you have sent me the mail yesterday, right? That you are not getting that hyphen, you are getting that right hand side. So I am getting it. So you analyze from your end what could be the issue. Check when the alternative plan is there. Anyhow, I'll reply to your mail, but I want you to try that. Okay, in front of you people only, I use this message statement, and if a negative value is there, it is coming left hand side by default. So I need not worry about anything. But what Swapna is, are you using the same syntax, Swapna, or some other syntax?
No, sir, I'm using same syntax. I'm not using message. I'm using it's not supporting. That's why I'm using
You are using?
concatenate certain
Correct.
message
Even
type.
if you use concatenate, after
Yes,
concatenate again you have to use message, na?
yes, sir. Message I using.
Okay. So what she is saying is, since this syntax is not supported, I told other syntax like concatenate and then displayed by using message. So if you are going by that syntax, it seems that negative symbol is coming right hand side. So what I want all of you is, you also try to use that syntax. Check whether you are getting at the left hand side, right hand side. If you are getting it right hand side, check any option is there to remove that minus from right hand side and keep it left hand side. So I want all of you to work on that. Anyhow, I might be covering that in the coming session, but I want you people to rectify that issue. She is saying that since the syntax is not supported in her system, she went for that concatenate and message combination. So in that case, the negative value is coming right hand side, it seems. Check of any alternative to print it left hand side. Okay, done. Yeah, is this clear, this part at selection screen event, SciUcom and all those things? Here, if you don't want to use case, use if SciUcom not called FC1, do so on. So here also, if P underscore Z equal to 1, do so on. So else if P underscore Z equal to 2, use so on. So done. Same logic, I can write it in using what? If and if also. Yes, any other questions here? So what is the main point is, whenever we interact with the selection screen push button, what is the event triggered? What is the event triggered? At selection screen. How do we identify which button the user has interacted with? The function code, based on the function code. Okay, whenever we interact with any push button, the function code of that button will be captured in the system field SciUcom in uppercase. So we should always compare in what? Uppercase and do this particular logic. So based on this, you try to do that radio button scenario. Yesterday I told you that radio buttons assignment. Not only radio buttons, even checkboxes also. I am able to select a checkbox or I am able to deselect a checkbox. So check what is the event triggered whenever we select or deselect a checkbox. Similarly, whenever we select a radio button in the radio button group, what is the event triggered? Based on that analysis, we have to do it. In this case, I went for push buttons and I told that the event is what? At selection screen. Similarly, related to checkboxes and radio buttons also, there would be some event or there would be same event. I don't know. You try from your end and let me know the answers. Okay. Yeah. Any questions in this example? Okay. So I'll stop now. Practice this tomorrow. Today we are seeing what? Block. Tomorrow we'll try to discuss other elements and other events. I have not discussed at selection screen output. I'll talk about this as and when required. As of now, just ignore. What you have to understand is, before showing the selection screen to the user, two events get triggered. What is the first event? Initialization. Then at selection screen output, first time it will display that. On the selection screen, if I do any action, that is if I click on a push button, this event gets triggered. What is that event? At selection screen. After at selection screen, again it triggers what? At selection screen output. Same event will be triggered again and it will refresh and redisplay the screen. So I'll talk about this event, not now, later on as and when required. So as of now, only initialization and at selection screen event. Okay.
Sir,
Yes, I.
sir, can we write declarations inside initialization or at selection screen events?
Okay. Before that, see here, this is a mandatory field. Na? If I click on the exit button, it will not work, because until unless you fill the mandatory fields, I cannot perform any action. Until unless you fill the mandatory fields, I cannot perform any action. Yeah, what you are saying is you want to declare the variables within the event, right?
This variable, sir, p
Yeah, yeah.
underscore z,
So
inside at selection screen.
in ABAP, variables can be declared anywhere. Okay, I'll remove this from here. I'll remove this here. I'll keep it somewhere here in the initialization event. Save it, check for the syntax. I don't have any errors. Okay, I'll activate this, execute this. I'll enter exit, working fine. I'll remove this from here. I'll keep it somewhere here, save it, check for the syntax, activate. I got product is 80. So what is the meaning? I can declare the variables anywhere. Okay, if you take Java, I believe in case of Java, I cannot declare the variables wherever I want. It should be declared at the beginning. I forgot, to be fair, but I think so in Java, we are declare it at the beginning. But whereas in Abap, I can declare the variables anywhere in the program. But good programming practice is you declare the variables at the beginning. All the variable declarations, you do it at the beginning. Anyway, I'm not focusing on that point at this stage because when we come to reports, at that time I'll focus on those things where you have to declare the variables, where you have to define the subroutines, something like that. Okay, but as of now, anywhere I can declare. Yeah, any other questions?
Sir, since initialization is containing variable declarations, can we debug it, sir?
Sorry,
Since the initialization event is full of variable declarations, is
no,
it
no,
possible to debug it, sir?
where are the variable declarations here? This is not variable declaration, na? It is initializing. This is called as declaration. Data keyword, parameter keyword, those are called as declaration. Even if I keep it here inside the initialization event, I cannot debug. Here I am activating this. I'll try to set the breakpoint on the 28th line. I'll put the cursor on the 28th line. I'll set the breakpoint. Is it allowing here? Session breakpoint is set, but where it is set? It is set at the beginning. Understood? So variable declarations cannot be debug. Okay, so if I execute now, okay, so what happened here? It is already triggered the initialization event, exit. So what I'll do, I'll remove the breakpoint from here. I'll not put the breakpoint for this variable declaration. I'll put it somewhere here in the 29th line. This I can debug. This comes under executable statements. Okay, so now when I'll put the breakpoint in both the events. I'm putting the breakpoints in both the events. So when I execute, according to the sequence of this, what is the first event triggered? Initialization. So it has to stop in what? Initialization event. So when I execute this, yeah, if I go to desktop 3, where it is stopping? Yes, in the initialization event. So internally, all the variables are already declared. If you see v underscore res, by default is what? 0. But explicitly, I cannot debug this statement. Okay, so rest of the story we know. I'll say F5. Okay, all the statements are getting executed in the initialization event. I'm not interested to debug further statements in the initialization. So I'll press F8. When I press F8, what is the next event triggered? At selection screen output. Did I handle that event in my program? No, I have not handled. Since I have not handled, nothing will happen. After that, what happens? The selection screen gets what? Displayed. Okay. So let me press F8 here. I'll press F8. What happened? The selection screen got displayed. I'll enter some input value here. Okay, I'll click on this exit button. Whenever I click on the button, what is the event triggered? At selection screen. So if I click on this, yes, since I get the breakpoint there, it is stopping there in the 38th line. You can see on the top. This is selection screen. What is the value of SciUCom? FC2, because I clicked on the exit button. Control directly jumps to when FC2. When I say F5, control is jumping to when FC2. I'll say F5. It has entered that when block. I'm executing the statement leave program. When I say F5, it is going to some standard code which we need not debug. I'm not interested. I'll say either F8 or F7. I got the out of the program. That's it. Yeah, either is it clear?
Yes, sir. Understood, sir. Thank you.
Yeah. Yeah. Any other questions, others? Okay. Sure then. So thank you everyone. We'll meet tomorrow. Try to do that assignments. Okay.